longer to eliminate the deficit than other parties, because I want to see us have the ability to invest more in our economy.
So we now have a good idea how much they will all cut, but we still don't know from where.
Well, with 2 weeks and counting to election day, the latest ITV News Daily Mail opinion poll suggests the Conservatives have slightly extended their slender lead over Labour, but the Comres findings still leave them short of a majority. Well, let's go back to our Deputy Political Editor, Chris Shipp. Chris, what can you tell us about this poll result?
A new poll tonight for ITV News, the Daily Mail by Comrades gives the Tories quite a chunky lead, well, chunky by the standards of this election campaign at any rate. Let's take a look at the numbers. The Conservatives are up a bit at 36, Labour down slightly to 32. Lib Dems, they're back in single digits, and I haven't seen UKIP at 10% for some considerable time. In that others column, that's up a bit, largely because of the surge in support for the SNP. What does it mean for the number of MPs, for the number of seats in the House of Commons here? Well, our election analyst Colin Rallings has done the sums. He thinks the Tories will end up as the largest party with 287 seats, but you'll note way short of the finish line. It really means the only alternative government, therefore, is a Labour minority administration backed up with those 50-odd votes from the SNP. Perhaps if you add in Plaid Cymru and the Greens as well, you've got that sort of progressive alliance that Nicola Sturgeon has been talking about, and a sizable block then of centre-left and left-wing parties.
Chris, the Conservatives have a new announcement tonight regarding income tax in England and Wales. What can you tell us?
Yes, just quickly, announcement tomorrow that England and Wales will be able to set its own rates of income tax. You might remember Scotland has got the power, or getting the power, to set its own rates, and English and Welsh MPs can't vote on Scottish income tax. Tomorrow David Cameron will say Scottish MPs can't vote on English income tax. Then we're back to our old friend English votes for English laws, about which we heard so much after the referendum.
All right, Chris Shipp at Westminster, thank you.
Still to come, a first look at tomorrow's front pages, plus another day, another politician, another kitchen, the burning questions for SNP leader Nicola Sturgeon.
And remembering those who gave their lives at Gallipoli 100 years on.
The town hall mayor who got elected by persuading Muslims it was un-Islamic to vote for anyone else has been banned from office. A court found Lutfur Rahman, mayor of Tower Hamlets in London, guilty of bribery and ballot rigging.
He's been left with a legal bill of £250,000. The case was only brought to court because 4 voters risked their own money to fight what they called a disgrace to British democracy. Paul Davis reports.
He was mobbed by his supporters. Just 11 months ago, Lutfur Rahman given the superstar treatment after being re-elected as mayor of Tower Hamlets. Now in a unique judgment, that result has been declared void.
1, 2, 3, way!
The opponents who took him to court are the ones celebrating now.
It was a disgrace to British democracy, and we weren't going to have it, and it's beginning to change. The town hall has been run by gangsters, and today they're being thrown out of the town hall.
In a civil judgment that has implications for other parts of the country, Rahman is said to have manipulated the diverse communities that make up this borough and rigged the vote. The allegations upheld by the election court included voting fraud, with ballots cast twice and postal votes sent from false addresses. Bribery, where Mr Rahman approved grants to organisations in return for their support, and making false statements against his Labour rival John Biggs, whom he called racist. As well as tampering with ballot papers and interfering with the electoral process, Mr Rahman and his supporters are said to have played the religious card, telling the borough's many Muslims that a vote for anyone else would be un-Islamic. Lutfur Rahman wasn't in court today, but has consistently denied all charges.
There has been no intimidation, there has been no fraud.
So there is nothing rotten in Tower Hamlets?
There's nothing rotten in Tower Hamlets. We have a fantastic borough.
At the town hall, his deputy said that position hadn't changed.
We are shocked by the ruling. Lutfur Rahman strongly denies all allegations against him.
London's mayor took a very different view.
Plainly, there was an awful lot wrong with the Lutfur Rahman's management of Tower Hamlets, and I think a great cloud has now been lifted over the borough. I think we need to get on, have new elections, and make sure nothing like this ever happens in London again.
A judge said today the Rahman inquiry could result in nationwide changes to electoral law. Meanwhile, the police are now discussing whether they need to interview the man whose place on the Town Hall Roll of Honour is in need of updating. Paul Davis, ITV News, Tower Hamlets.
The Sunderland footballer Adam Johnson has been charged with 3 offences of sexual activity with an underage girl, a 15-year-old. Johnson's also charged with grooming her. From Sunderland, here's Damon Green.
He arrived for his interview at this police station near his home in County Durham, accompanied by his solicitor and aware that one way or another, prosecutors had made their decision. That decision will see this Premier League footballer appear in court, charged with 4 sexual offences against a 15-year-old girl. Adam Johnson is a star of the Sunderland side, currently struggling near the foot of the league table, capped for England, one of the best paid players at his club. But he was arrested on March the 2nd following a complaint to police. Now, after 7 weeks of investigation by detectives, the Crown Prosecution Service has decided to charge him. In a statement it said, "There is a realistic prospect of conviction on 1 offence of meeting a child following sexual grooming and 3 offences of sexual activity with a child." When he was first arrested last month, Adam Johnson was dropped from the Sunderland first team, despite being a multi-million-pound signing and a star player. Since then, a new team manager has put him back in the side, but that was before the decision by prosecutors to bring charges. He's been told to appear before Peterlee magistrates on the 20th of May, a few days before the end of this football season. His club says it will make an announcement on its response tomorrow. Damon Green, ITV News, in County Durham.
A 14-year-old boy from Blackburn has been charged with 2 offences inciting terrorism overseas. The charges relate to a terror plot in Australia, which led to 5 other arrests in Sydney last week. The boy is accused of encouraging others to carry out an attack during this weekend's Anzac ceremonies.
The parents of a newborn baby boy who only lived for 100 minutes have described their pride in their son for saving someone else's life as Britain's youngest organ donor. They were told long before tiny Teddy Hulston was born that he had a fatal brain condition. But as Rebecca Barry reports, they wanted him to pass on the gift of life.
OK, here's Mummy.
A proud mother and her newborn twins.
He's a yawning.
But little Teddy on the left was so seriously ill, he only lived for an hour and 40 minutes. Then he became Britain's youngest ever organ donor.
The thought that he could possibly be living on through someone else is just, I find it absolutely astonishing that they can even do that. So to have the opportunity for him to do that was just a blessing.
Such a comfort for us, such a comfort to think that he could go and save somebody's life. Could you be any more prouder than that?
During the pregnancy, they were told Teddy had a fatal condition, stopping his skull developing. Knowing he wouldn't survive, they decided to donate his organs. His kidneys saved an adult patient's life. Now the family hope his story inspires others to donate.
Happy birthday. Oh, lovely.
Yesterday would have been his first birthday.
Teddy's twin brother Noah is happy and healthy. What will you tell him about his brother when he grows up? How will you describe him?
Well, one of the things that we've always said is that he's a hero, and he went on and did such great things, and that's something that we're really going to make sure Noah's aware of when he grows up. Our grief has just been somewhat easier to kind of take. He may have passed away that day, but from now on, that's his legacy. He's going to go on and he's going to save more lives. Little Ted and No.
In his very short life, he achieved a great deal. Rebecca Barry, ITV News.
Back to the election now. Scotland's First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, has talked about the different kind of scrutiny women politicians face over things like clothes and having children. And the SNP leader, the most prominent woman in the election campaign, has given our Scotland correspondent, Debbie Edward, a glimpse of her life away from the political stage.
Nicola Sturgeon is only 6 months in the job as SNP leader, but during this general election campaign, she has propelled her party and herself to the forefront of British politics.
This is gorgeous. I think that would suit you. I love this dress.
For the past 2 weeks, she's given me an insight into her changing image and told me about the pressures of being a woman in politics.
It still annoys me when I read really derogatory things about how a woman looks, because you would usually not read these things about a man. So that annoys me, and I think that still has the potential to put women off public life, and that's a real shame. You burned the toast!
Her husband, Peter Murrell, is the SNP chief executive, and at home, he is usually the cook.
I asked you to do one
I was distracted, sorry.
The increased interest in Scotland's most powerful couple means they are often asked why they don't have children.
It's, you know, it's just one of those questions that a female politician would get asked, that a man would never get asked.
The idea that you ever would have made a sort of conscious decision around these things, I mean, some women possibly do, and there's nothing wrong with that, but we certainly didn't.
I see also a lot of books about Tony Blair.
I found some choice light reading.
And one about Gordon Brown.
I think it's really interesting how the whole view of political relationships has been completely coloured and tainted by that, you know, dysfunctional relationship that was at the heart of New Labour.
And the average Saturday night?
When things like X Factor or Strictly Come Dancing or recently The Voice have been on, that's the kind of stuff I'll watch. Television, when I get the chance, is a switch-off thing. It's, you know, I'm not watching highbrow films or anything.
Nicola Sturgeon has emerged as a key figure in an election in which she is not even standing. Debbie Edward, ITV News.
On tomorrow's front pages, The Guardian says David Cameron has placed himself at the head of English nationalism with the promise to introduce an England-only income tax. The Telegraph quotes the former Labour Trade Minister, Lord Digby Jones, as saying Ed Miliband should stop sneering at wealth creators, and the Daily Express reports that annuity rates have fallen to their lowest ever, meaning lower pension returns for millions of savers.
And finally tonight, where young men once fought and died in the disastrous First World War campaign at Gallipoli in Turkey, thousands of people are gathering to remember their bravery and their sacrifice. Special commemorations are being held for the 100th anniversary. 58,000 Allied troops died. British, Australian, New Zealand, Indian and French. From Gallipoli, our correspondent Dan Rivers reports.
The Royal Navy is back in the Dardanelles, 100 years after the Gallipoli campaign that led to such slaughter. Where two continents collide, so too did the armies of the world when Britain attempted to get a foothold on this strategic peninsula. The Gallipoli campaign was Winston Churchill's military gamble to open a supply line to Russia, but the amphibious landing failed. Infamous for the 11,000 Australians and New Zealanders who died, it's often forgotten Britain lost almost 3 times that number.
The British came ashore here at Cape Helles, which soon became a bloodbath. This was their only cover, and their first day objective was 6 miles away, but it took them 2 months to get there. Soon they were bogged down in trench warfare, and the British High Command realised the only way to penetrate further up the Dardanelles was from the sea, using submarines.
Duncan Dunbar Naismith shows me the waters where his grandfather, Martin Naismith, navigated his submarine through mines and nets to sink 94 Turkish ships in 96 days, his bravery earning him the Victoria Cross. He photographed many exploits like this pioneering commando raid using a raft packed with explosives. Naismith's daring do later retold by this comic featuring a battle between the sub and Turkish cavalry.
Rifle fire was exchanged between the two, which fairly certain would be the only example in world history of a submarine engaging a troop of cavalry.
And the enemy would have been a few hundred metres away.
But ashore in the trenches, the campaign was becoming a disaster. Ian Dover is on a pilgrimage to find the trench where his grandfather Henry fought.
People recognise the Somme and Ypres, but nobody remembers Gallipoli, and for the number of people that were killed, I think that's wrong. And the cemeteries are full of my granddad's colleagues. You can't fail to be moved by the atmosphere of the place.
Where 100,000 souls perished in 9 months, in a campaign which symbolises all the wretched futility of the First World War. Dan Rivers, ITV News, Gallipoli.
And that is tonight to ITV News at 10.
In a few moments, the national weather, the news where you are, and later the agenda. That's with Tom Bradby. But from the two of us, good night. Thank you for watching.
Good night.